Hi there, Majid. Yeah, I very much appreciate the line you're taking on this. I see that COVID has an R rating of 1, and measles has one of 18. It has on average a 99.7% cure rate, average death age of 84, and hospital beds are 2/3 consumed at the moment with 7% corona beds, so we're hardly at risk of reaching capacity on it. I agree with you, we can't get rational answers from the politicians, but where we might disagree a bit is that I think this is something that's being cascaded down on the politicians by groups that people call sort of quote-unquote New World Order.
Okay, Nick, you know what I don't want this show to do, because it becomes dangerous, because what it does is it undermines the evidence-based conversation I'm trying to have, and though I sympathise with the fact that you're trying to say something about the global situation, I would like to focus it on the national context and the evidence, because otherwise what happens, Nick, and I hope you understand this, people call me a conspiracist for simply asking questions. So I want to shut the door to that by not entertaining those conversations. For this moment, for this show and at this time, what I'd like to do is discuss the national situation and the evidence about the national situation. I hope you understand, Nick.
Yes, that's fine, and let's stick to that scenario then. We're in a situation where we're at lockhorns with the politicians. I've been trying to argue with my local MP, Sarah Olney, about this quite a lot, and it's literally, you get sort of copy-pasted responses, and they don't go into the actual material you're presenting. The last thing I presented to her was, from a risk perspective, let's say you have a device that's overheating, well, what's the mitigation? You put a fan on it, or you use it less. You don't shut down the whole country's power supply. From a risk perspective, I'm trying to argue with her, you actually deal with the actual issue rather than make it a much wider one. And let's leave it as it smacks of an agenda.
What do you think when you're making those, when you're putting those questions to government or politicians or people in public who aren't responding rationally to the questions that you're asking? Do you think that they're not understanding the questions you're posing, or is it because they are understanding them but don't want to answer them?
Well, there's several factors here. I heard one lady come on LBC yesterday and talk about if you'll put people in the grave if you don't follow the advice, and they know people who have died. But nobody actually challenged her and said, well, how old were those people who died? Did they have any medical underlying conditions? It's like people will accept
let me just read, sorry to interrupt you, Nick, but on that note, let me just read something to you which may surprise our listeners. Again, this is from the evidence from the Office for National Statistics that has just been released, that the Mail was writing about. I'm just directly quoting, according to the latest Office for National Statistics, ONS figures, for October 2020, in spite of all the COVID-19 deaths, the average death rate in the over 75s, wait for it, was significantly lower this year than it was last October.
Correct. That's correct.
And by the way, so you look at that and compare it with the 5-year average, and I'll tell you what it says about the 5-year average. When you look at the 5-year average, because of the death toll in the first period of COVID in this country early this year, the death toll on the 5-year average, again, I'll just read directly for you so no one can accuse me of misquoting anything. Yes, in the week to November 6, overall deaths in England and Wales stood at 11,812, which was 14.3%, or 1,481 deaths higher than the 5-year average. In other words, now I don't want to say only, every death is tragic, but in the context of a 70 million size population, 1,481 deaths higher than the 5-year average this year, combined with the figure from the ONS that actually fewer elderly people died this year than they did last year, it gives you a fuller picture, doesn't it, Nick?
It does, and I find more and more, as reality seems to have gone off the edge of the cliff, people are less willing to accept facts and statistics,